Welcome to the Bourbon Retriever. Today we're going to do a little bit of a hunting video in the Charlotte, South Carolina area. Here for work, so I thought, why not? Let's drive around, see what the local area has to offer. We're going to hit 2 stores here in South Carolina. Unfortunately, you can't really hunt Charlotte, North Carolina. It's a ABC state, very similar to Virginia. It's going to be kind of a lot of the same inventory across the state and the counties. But lucky enough, South Carolina is here, just a couple minutes across the border here. It's not that far. I think it's maybe like 10 minutes from downtown Charlotte to get to South Carolina. So I looked up, found 2 liquor stores in the area. You'll want to stay tuned because one of these stores I am super excited to go to. Okay, our first stop on the trip here is at Frugal McDoogal, a staple in the area right across the border from Charlotte into South Carolina. Right here at the door, you're greeted by Mr. Jack Daniels himself. Could have a seat here, say hello, but I went on in and first stop was at the glass case. Nothing in here really caught my eye. It was mostly scotches or higher end products that to me aren't necessarily worth the price, or I just don't really know what they are. They had a couple of private picks here. The first one I stopped at was this Elijah Craig. We'll have to always check the specs on it. This one is a 9-year, 122 proof whiskey. Unfortunately, this has been a trend I've seen lately with lower age statement products from their single barrels. The next one I stopped at was the Maker's Mark. This is in the old bottle. The new ones are now in the Maker's Mark style bottle, but this is one of the old ones. Looks like I missed some of their Evan Williams single barrel. They got a limit on it here, but those availability are starting to show up more in the area. On the bottom shelf here, they got a couple of benchmark products. These are great value buys if you don't have them. And Basil Hayden. Most whiskey, I guess people who call them experts, aren't a fan of Basil Hayden, but it is a great beginner whiskey. A lot of beginner people love it because of the lower proof. First here, we got a lot of the Rye. Was a pick on the left, not the biggest fan, but Peerless. Peerless can be good, especially if you find single barrels. If your local store does a pick, give it a shot and try it because those can be delicious. Old Reserve 7, another great bottle to buy, especially if you're not a big rye fan. I think that is a great rye for a bourbon lover. Burberry Rye, also a really good one. In Virginia, it is allocated, but that's on the sweeter side, lighter than the Old Ezra 7. I'm a big fan of Tin Cup 10-year, especially at the proof. I am hunting lower proof whiskey that has bold flavor, and Tin Cup is exactly that kind of bottle. More Basil Hayden, not my cup of tea. Now, when these first came out a couple years ago, people were all over them. This is the Smoke Wagon Uncut Unfiltered. They have a couple other products, but this uncut version was the most popular. I haven't been a fan of their batches lately, but I have seen the prices coming on down. Then you have the 2XO down here, coming up with these new additions. I want to say maybe quarterly or a couple times a year. They're good juice, but I think they're a lower price for what they are. Then you got the 4 Roses here with the new label. I always hunt for the lower floor tiers because they put less water in it to water it down to 100 proof. Now for these Baker 7s, always check the neck tag because oftentimes they are much older than 7 years old. I have seen them 8, well up into the 8s, almost 9 years old, so definitely check those tags. Then you got a bunch of the Heaven's Door, a variety here. It's not necessarily my cup of tea, but if your store has a pick, definitely try it and see if it's something you enjoy. I've been hearing great things about this Chattanooga whiskey. I can't get it in Virginia, so it's one I'm debating to pick up on this trip. These 7992 full proofs, always a buy. If you don't have one, definitely pick it up. I had 3 at home, so I just did not need another. Leave it here for the next customer. For me, the Kentucky spirits can be hit or miss. Definitely check the label and see if it is a warehouse that you like Warehouse F. CNF is a very popular one, so if you see a nice warehouse, it would definitely be one picking up. Here's a Larceny with the old label. They came out with a new redone label design. I've always been sleeping on these, but they have been killing and obliged me lately, so I definitely want to buy more of those going forward. Here's the Elijah Craig we talked about earlier, but on the left here, you have the lower proof version. You don't see many of the lower proof picks out there. I really hope more stores do these because I think they're fantastic. It's just people are chasing the proof lately, so these don't sell as well. But I oftentimes actually enjoy the lower proof picks over the barrel proof picks. And we got our Knob Creek selection. Knob Creek picks are always good buys for that $60-ish price point. And if you can find the Knob Creek 12s here to the next of it, those are also great bottles for about that $60. Now here's a brand I have never heard of, Conviction. It does say here that it is made in North Carolina. So I'm always looking for local distilleries whenever I go to a different area, because often they don't have big distribution, so you can't get them where you are, and it's always fun to try and support local distilleries that are actually making their own juice and not sourcing it. I've never had Conviction, so let me know if I messed up here. Here's a couple other bottles that they produce, but the one that caught my eye the most is this double oak. This is the one I was leaning towards buying the most because I oftentimes like that double oak finish in products, but let me know if I made a mistake in not getting it. Now this is something I don't always do, but when I'm filming, I check the Maker's Mark bottles because I know some of you out there love hunting for the dunks, but I didn't see any here today. Now I'm going to do a little bit of B-roll here of all the different aisles, so that way you can see of all the bottles that this store offers. Earlier I just did kind of highlighting of the bottles that caught my eye, but here's some more that they're offering, and maybe you guys see something here that I missed. Hey, Frugal McDoogal lived up to its name. That was probably some of the cheapest prices I've ever seen. Nothing super crazy. They didn't have any, super allocated bottles, but the stuff they had was almost ridiculous pricing. Like the Tin Cup 10. If you guys live anywhere in Charlotte, go there and grab it. A $40 bottle for a 10-year product is just a great value. If I didn't have it, I would 100% pick that up. That's like $10 below what they go for in Virginia or Maryland. What else come out? The Smoke Wagon Uncut Filtered. That was also like $10 cheaper than I've ever seen it. Probably the bottle that I wanted to get most was the 1792 Foolproof, but I already have two of those at home and they're picks. If I did not have that bottle, that would have been one I would have grabbed because that's another, I think, great value for around 50 bucks. And then the one bottle that I wish I could have gotten a sample of was either of those Conviction picks they had. It looks like it's a distillery from North Carolina or South Carolina or somewhere around here. And when I travel, I'd like to get bottles that are local to the area, especially them being picks. One was like a double oak, which I think could be really cool to try. But unfortunately, I didn't see an area where I could go taste them. They might have offered at the store, but I didn't want to bother them. But if any of you out there have had Conviction or that pick specifically, let me know. I might have missed out on that one, but that was a bottle that I probably should have gotten up just because I can't get it up there in Virginia. Now this is the store that I was most excited to visit on my trip, and it is Southern Spirits. When you first walk in here, you have different barrels from different distilleries. I'm assuming these are barrels from all their picks, but I love the look of these old barrels out front. Similar to how Jack greeted the old store, this store they have Buffalo from Buffalo Trace greeting you as you walk in. When you first walk in, the first thing that catches your eye is all these barrels with barrel picks. They have probably the most barrel picks I've seen at any store. The first one there is Wilderness Trail. The next one is Angel's Envy. I'm really not a fan of these picks as that port note can be very abundant. They also have some tequila picks finished in different Buffalo Trace barrels. Also got Knob Creek picks here. I always check to see if I can see if they're much older. A lot of times they're 9 years, but if you're lucky you can find an 11-year-old one. I've never owned an old elk, but whenever I try them at friends' houses, I'm not the biggest fan. I think the price to value isn't quite there, and it's mostly on the mouthfeel. They kind of have that crafty mouthfeel. And this old elk bottle, they did a pretty cool thing of imprinting the store logo on top of the cork there. Now I haven't had any Rossville rye. Rye is, I'm always a little more skeptical of buying. There were definitely ones I want to try before I buy. Same thing with Barrel. Barrel can be hit or miss for me for the value. This is another one I always want to try before I buy. I think I see a Rebel store pick at almost every store up in Maryland. They always seem to be sitting on shelves at every store. Here's some more Knob Creek. Again, checking the date here. It's not that old, but I'm always looking to see if I can find ones that are 11 plus years old, but those are getting much harder. Now here's another product from North Carolina that I haven't seen before. Again, I like to buy products local when I go there, but I am not a single malt whiskey fan, so this has ended up being a pass for me. And then some Yellowstone. Again, these are also picks I see at almost every store. They just share on the shelf. They don't really move that well. So it feels like we've gone through a lot of their picks, but you can see it's actually only about half of the picks. Over here, they got some other ones. First here is the Jefferson's Ocean, aged at sea. This is a little bit of a marketing gimmick and too pricey for me for what you're getting. Here's some Smoke Wagon. I'm assuming this is a pick. I've never seen picks before. I checked the back of the label. It looks like it's just a batch. Maybe it's a pick, I don't know. And then here's some various Woodford picks. They look just to be traditional Woodford picks. They aren't the double oaks, but they have a couple different variations there. And then also here, the Hill Rock. I've never had Hill Rock, but I am not a big finish fan, so it was one that was hard for me to pull the trigger on. In addition, the price tag on them is a little steep. Here you also got the Rose Cast finish. If you have not had a Rose Cast finish pick, I would suggest you go buy one. I had one that was local in Marin and fell in love with it. It is one of the few finished products that I really enjoyed. Here again, another Knob Creek pick. Seems like they have several of these. Here they have their Maker's pick. I would love to go do a Maker's pick. I think it'd be a really cool exercise because you're actually blending barrels instead of picking one barrel. I think that'd be a cool pick experience to do. This is a very interesting title, Coffee and Cigarettes. That's a little off-putting for me, but I'm sure there might be someone else's cup of tea out there. I still just can't get over how many store picks this place had. It is definitely the most store picks I've seen in one store. Now over here on the right of the stores, really have a lot of their new release stuff. They had the Bond and Lillard. I bought the first release of this, which is Wild Turkey Juice. Here's a Hirsch barrel. The Hirsches I think you should be looking out for is not this one, but the Hirsch single barrel, double barrels. They're yellow on the front. They are sourced from Willet, and definitely check the back on the ages. Those can be really good. Here's a James E. Pepper decanter. These blew up over the summer. It's not a whiskey I gotta have, so I ended up passing on. I think it's an okay whiskey. But here is the PGA Elijah Craig small batch. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was pretty good. But the cool things about these bottles is they blend whiskey from the P, the G, and the A warehouses in Heaven Hill because it is the PGA bottle. At the front of the store is where they have a lot of their higher end allocated bottles. You got their Weller foolproof pick along with a bunch of different Buffalo Trace bottles that are very hard to get. Unfortunately, these are not for sale to the average consumer. There's a couple ways you can get these bottles. You can get it by being a loyal customer. They also do fun Saturday games like hidden in a bag or somewhere around the store to find. Follow their Instagram on the different ways you can get those bottles. Or if you're a big wine person, I'm not that person, but if you are and you spend about $1,000 on wine, here's another way that you can get some of their allocated bourbons. And probably the most well-known game at Southern Spirits is the 5-second game. So you spin this wheel, it tells you how many seconds you're gonna have, then you go in the room and they start the clock immediately when the doors open, and you have to put your hand on a bottle before the clock runs out. Now this sounds easy, but when you're in the moment, time just rushes by. It's hard to read all the bottles clearly, and you end up panicking and just grabbing a bottle. Often not, you're gonna end up something good because there are a ton of good bottles in here. Here's a shelf of some allocated bottles that you can buy in the store when you walk in. Nothing caught my eye. There were some cool scotches in here, but just outside of price range, considering I'm not a scotch fanatic. Now all the way in the back of the store is where a lot of their shelf products are. Again, here's the Baker 7. Gotta check that tag. And you see here it is an 8.5-year-old whiskey, so that would be one to grab if you do not have a Baker 7. The new Jim Beam 7 Black that came out, reviewed relatively well. I personally have not had it yet. And then on the right here is a bunch of their ryes. They got a Pikesville rye up here. This was one of the first allocated bottles I got when I first got into whiskey. I killed that bottle. I haven't got one since, so it's definitely one I'm probably gonna go back to soon, just to remember what it was like. I remember liking it when I first got it. Well, not a rye, they also have a Jack Daniel's barrel proof here. Definitely check these for the proof points. Sometimes you can get them close to hazmat if you're lucky. Here's an overview of their bourbon selection. I highlighted some of the bottles I thought were interesting, but just, here's an overview in case there is something I missed. Here's some more of that Chattanooga whiskey. This is a cask strength bourbon. It's the one I probably should have picked up, and I'm kicking myself for not grabbing it. They got their lineup of barrel products here. I think barrel is traditionally a little overpriced, but that barrel foundation bottle for $50 I think is a good value bottle to get. I haven't heard of Copper and Kings, but it is a finished whiskey, so it's hard for me to take a risk on it. Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond used to actually be a really hard bottle to get, but it is sitting on the shelves now in Maryland and Virginia. Actually, you can get it for almost 40 bucks where I am. Now here's another brand I haven't had for, Bibb and Tucker. The bottle is pretty fancy. Anytime I see a fancy bottle, I instantly get a little scared that they're probably overselling whatever's inside of it. Got a couple Barstown products here. It's a little more on the expensive side, but let's see which one it is. It's 9. Yeah, 9's not the greatest. Rows of single barrel again. Check the tier on it. This is a tier 4. Again, I'm looking for closer to the tier 1s for these single barrels at 100 proof. People talk about how the older Old Scout picks used to be fantastic. I haven't been a fan of the new stuff, but the older stuff I've heard was really good. This bottle caught my eye, not for what it is, but for the bottle it is in. This looks to me like an Elmer T. Lee bottle. So that piqued my interest, and it's also a single barrel, which is very similar to Elmer T. Lee, which is a single barrel, but I'd never heard of this brand before, and I doubt it's anything related to Buffalo Trace. Here's some Jefferson Reserve. These are traditionally passes for me at their price tag. I think you can get better stuff in the store for what you're gonna pay. And then by the checkout aisle, there are 2 different games here you can play to have the chance to purchase an allocated bottle. The first one here is kind of a lockbox here. You put in different combinations. If the combination works, then you get to have a chance to buy that bottle. And then the last one here is a marble game. You have to get the marble all the way to the top without falling through any of those holes. After watching Survivor, I thought I could knock this out, but I severely struggled and then just tried to bum rush it up here at the end and failed. Here's a better view of all the different Hill Rock picks. I didn't realize how many they had at the barrel here, but again, for the price tag, it's not one that I'm gonna purchase today. A couple different Knob Creek rye picks, but none of them were quite at the age statement that I was looking for. Now, this is probably one of the coolest things I have seen at any liquor store, and it is some old aged cognac. I personally have not seen cognacs with this age statement in a liquor store, so it was really cool to see it. They are well outside my price range, but it was really cool just looking at them and finding all the different years. Like this one is from 1961. That is just wild to me. Okay, unfortunately my phone, which is my camera on these hunts, died mid-shooting at Southern Spirits. Luckily, I think I got most of it. There really wasn't much that I didn't get to, but I'm now back home, was able to charge my phone, and I can give you guys a quick little recap. I really enjoyed that store. I thought they had a great layout. All their store picks were on barrels right when you walked in, all lined up. I thought that was like a really cool aesthetic. And there was just a lot of store picks there. That's probably one of the most store picks I've seen at a store. Like there were a lot of good selection. And then even the shelf bottles, I thought the prices on those were decent, and they also had a decent selection. But what I love most is maybe it's just their attitude. One of the things they call themselves is the second best liquor store in the world, which, you know, most places, like, we're the best, we're number one. And just the fact they'd call themselves number 2, I think it just shows the humor they have and the personalities they have there. I thought it's a pretty funny anecdote on my end. But another thing cool is they have a bunch of different games there. When you go in, there's one where you can do a code thing. That's pretty fun. It's like 2 attempts. And then also the marble with the holes and getting it to the top, you can get a Buffalo Trace bottle. It was a lot harder than it looks. Trust me. I thought I could kill it after watching all the Survivor episodes when they pulled the ball up and try and get in the slot. But it was much more difficult. And then probably one of the cooler things they do is they got this thing called a 5-second game. It's where they have a lot of their nice bottles in their back room, and you spin your wheel, it tells you how many seconds you have, and then you go back in there and you have that many seconds to grab a bottle. If you don't grab a bottle, miss out, and then whatever bottle you grab within that time frame is the bottle you end up buying. I think it's a fun, great concept for the store to do. I ended up not playing the game today, but they have a cool concept for anyone who wants to come in and play the game. Basically, they're selling these packages where they curate you a $500 set of something from the store. They talk to you about your palate, what your needs, what you want, what things you like, maybe different things you might be able to try to expand your palate, and they curate a nice little set for you, and then along with that experience, you get to play the 5-second game. I just like how the store has multiple fun little ways for you to get a nice bottle. Sometimes it's the journey to get a bottle. That's like a lot of time why we like hunting. It's the journey to getting the bottle, and they have a bunch of cool journeys to get the bottle. The 5-second game on the Saturdays, I think it's every second Saturday, every 2 Saturdays, They have fun little concepts. It's either like they do a hunting thing where they put 4 bottles in the store and the first 4 people to find them get the bottle. Some days it's like a mystery bag. They put like 10 bottles on the table, they put bags over them, and then they draw tickets, and whoever gets the first ticket walks to the table, and you just pick a bag, and that's the bottle you buy that day. It's just a bunch of fun little cool concepts. If I lived in the Charlotte area, this would definitely be a store that I would go to, buy the picks, playing their fun games to get bottles, and I think it's just a great store. The people were super nice, and I cannot recommend the store enough. I was going to do one more store. I was going to do a Charlotte ABC store. I ran out of time today, but I hope to get to that tomorrow. Okay, so it is the next day, and we are back in the state of North Carolina. We're at one of the ABC Spirits, which is a North Carolina ABC store here. They don't have an online inventory system, so I can't see what is at each store. According to the Google images I found, this one seems to be one of the larger ones, so let's go in and see what they got. This glass case is where they had their allocated products, but none of them in the glass case really caught my eye. I had never heard of this virgin bourbon. I think it was a little weird to call something a virgin because I think virgin cocktails are supposed to be alcoholic free, but this said it's 101 proof. You got some benchmark bonded and some different Remus barrels here. And I haven't really enjoyed the previous Remus barrels that I've had. Now, I would highly recommend you guys to try Southern Star. I think this is a hidden gem in the bourbon whiskey game. I went toward their distillery. I'll put a link up at the top here. Now, here's Ragged Branch. This is a distillery in Virginia, I believe outside of Charlotte. What caught my eye in this is that it's a double oak wheated, that it is barrel proof. And also that it is picked from a local pick group, the Charlotte Bourbon Society. But even though that I'm from Virginia, I haven't had Ragged Branch, so this is definitely a bottle I am considering buying today. Here's another local brand, Oldie Raleigh. It's a really gorgeous bottle. And I tried to do some quick research online, and it looks like they do tons of different blending projects. And now I've never heard of this brand, but it is from Texas, and I'm just generally not a fan of that Texas funk. I don't normally buy gift sets, but if you're looking to buy the whiskey anyways, it's normally the same price as buying the bottle, so might as well get the free cup. Looks like this store got cleared out. This is the only Jim Beam 7 left at this store, a little lonely one just sitting there on the shelf. Now this is a decent price on a maker's pick. I have a couple at home, so I don't feel like I need to buy another one, but it's definitely one to try at your store if you can, because they can be hit or miss. Rye 3 is a local brand in the Virginia Beach area from Virginia, but I'm not a Finnish fan, so I ended up passing on these. Here's some various Smoke Wagon Ryes. Smoke Wagon has some of the prettiest bottles, especially when they had this clear glass bottle. I think it's just gorgeous. I think it's prettier than the black bottles. End of Days is another made in North Carolina brand here. I tried it at a bar, and I have to say I am not the biggest fan, but maybe it'll get better once it's older. Here's another North Carolina brand that I had not heard of before, but I really like the branding on this with the kind of Bible verse with the texture on front of it. I think that's cool little branding on there, but I haven't had it before. I was surprised to see how many North Carolina distilleries are here. There's another North Carolina one, but this one is a hard pass here at only being 1 year old. Here's a brand that caught my eye because it is a cask strength bourbon whiskey and it's only 40 bucks. I tried to look at the side here to see the color on it, to see the age on it, but I really had decision paralysis with all of these North Carolina brands. Like, I recognized the Southern Star, but a lot of these other brands I just had never heard of before. If you're from the North Carolina, let me know which of these other brands I should have gotten. It was just hard deciding without having any background information on all these different brands, but let me know in the comments and I will definitely look out for those next time I go to North Carolina. Another cool thing was all the picks from the local pick society. They definitely have more picks here at this North Carolina ABC than they do in Virginia. Now here's the only Buffalo Trace products I saw here today, the Bourbon Cream and the Travelers, but I'm not a fan of the Travelers, so that was a pass for me. Here are a couple shots of all the bourbon whiskey in that section at the ABC store. Tried to talk about the bottles I thought were interesting, but I'm sure there are bottles I've missed. If there's something that you think is interesting here that I didn't talk about, definitely let me know and I'll keep an eye out for it in the future. So I just finished hunting the local ABC store here in North Carolina, and surprisingly, I actually bought something. If you have watched a lot of my hunting videos, I don't actually buy that much when I go on these trips. I try and be very selective, but I actually did get something today. I wanted to get something local, something North Carolina based, and I was actually shocked how many North Carolina distilleries are. I didn't realize. I knew about Southern Star, but I didn't hear about any of those others. I would have gotten the Southern Star Cask Strength if they had that, the wheated version, but they're already out of stock. The only one they had that was close was they had the 100 proof, and I didn't really want the Rise. And then a lot of the other North Carolina distilleries, I was hesitant to get because I didn't really find an age statement, and when I did, it was like 1 year old. I think the highest one might have been 4 years old. So that kind of turned me off a little bit that there wasn't anything with higher age statement on the North Carolina products. But you probably noticed as I was going through the bottles that there were several picks here from the local Charlotte Bourbon Society and bartenders are said. So I guess maybe it's a local bartender group. I don't have too much information on the society, but they actually had a pretty decent number of picks in there. They had an Old Soul pick that I almost grabbed. I've been looking to get an Old Soul. A lot of people have been recommending it, and it's one I'm interested in. I just haven't pulled the trigger because I know it's MGPG, so I don't really feel the need to have to buy it because there's so much Indiana stuff out there. But I've been hearing great things, so it's one I want to get eventually. But I ultimately settled on the Ragged Branch Double Oaked Wheated Bourbon. Ragged Branch is a Virginia distillery, so I initially was a little hesitant to grab it because I can always get it in Virginia, except this version. This is a double oaked wheated, which I'm pretty sure you can only get at the distillery. And then the fact that this is a pick from North Carolina, I was even more excited to grab it because I wanted something North Carolina based. And if you just look at how dark this is, like you can barely even see through it. It comes in a good proof here. It's 120, so I think that's going to be a nice proof point for this. So super excited to try this. So that was my hunting video for North Carolina / South Carolina. If you're anyone is local dairy, let me know maybe what stores I missed. Or if you know any of those North Carolina bourbons, let me know which ones I should have grabbed, so next time I'm in town, I'll make sure to pick it up. But if you're enjoying this content, before you head out, make sure you check out this video or this one. And until next time, cheers.